Hi friends, it's Sarah from Ruffles and Rainboots here with a nautical gnome. So I'm going to be using the treasure gnome pattern with some fleece, some non-stretchy denim. This is just a shirt I picked up at the thrift store. I'm going to be using some 2-inch pile faux fur, these Dollar Tree nautical ropes, decorative ropes. And again, I'm going to be using the treasure gnome pattern with the acrylic pieces, some poly pellets for weight, and poly fill for the stuffing. I'm going to be hot gluing this together, but I do have instructions in the pattern on how to sew it. Sewing takes a lot less time. So I had some questions on this. I'm just going to show you how I use a non-stretchy fabric for this stuff. You can see there are 3 ways to use these acrylic patterns: a rotary cutter, some fabric scissors, or tracing. Whatever makes your heart happy, all 3 will work. So I'm going to be incorporating this seam on the front of the gnome, and all I'm going to do is make sure I have 2 layers here and cut everything out. For a non-stretchy, I was asked to share how I would do it. Add 1/8 to 1/4 at the bottom, only of the base. I'm going to put those aside, and these are our pieces: 2 brims, 1 hat, 1 body, and 1 base. You can see on the brim, I cut that out pretty quickly. All right, so all I'm going to do is put my entire arm down on the table so I can get a nice steady little arc here. I'm going to anchor 2 sides and then fill in the rest and set that aside to dry. So when you're working with non-stretchy fabrics, I would recommend that if you have to stretch something, you use a 2-way stretch or a 4-way stretch. Fleece is the most forgiving. Felt, some of it can be forgiving, but stuff like this denim is not. When you're working with a hot glue gun instead of the sewing machine on my patterns every single time, it will work out if you just stabilize that arm. You can also use some fabric glue. I have people who assemble my gnomes and send me pictures all the time of the fabric glue. I am a klutz with it. I am awful with it, so you'll probably never see me attempting that again. Once we had put the right sides together and glued all this brim piece together, I'm going to show you a little trick right here. It looks all gunky because I did a bad job. I'm just going to melt that glue and press in. See that? You're not adding any more glue. You're just melting it and pressing it in. All right, so now for this one, this is non-stretchy. Remember, we didn't add anything to this pattern piece. I'm going to get some pins, and I'm going to show you. We're going to use a taco method. You're just going to put the base in half, get where they join right here at the center, and you're going to put that along whatever your front is or whatever your back is. Your choice. Making sure that you put the pretty side of the fabric facing in with the other pretty sides of the fabric. So you're just going to anchor that in place with a pin. Now, if you're really good at this, you made these a long time, you are not going to need the pins. But for those of you who are sewing or who are new to this pattern, go ahead and use the pins. So now I'm just going to flatten it on the other side and anchor that in place as well. Now, if you are using pins, I would recommend using the small ones, and I wouldn't recommend using the clips because you get less real estate to actually glue. Now remember, we added to this bottom piece, and you may think it's not going to fit, it's not going to fit. I promise you it will. So you can see here, I'm going to use this seam as my front, and so every inch or so, I'm just going to add the pins. Now watch. I'm going to smooth out this fabric, and it will work. I've tested this thing hundreds of times. I've made so many of these. And if you buy a pattern from me, it will work. I test them. I send them to my testers. So this isn't just me, cranking this stuff out. All of this stuff gets so well tested. But you can see I'm just flattening it out. There will be no creases. And again, I don't play with fuzzy editing. So here you go. I'm just going to fast forward it, but you can see there are no creases around this. So once we have it started, I'm going to go ahead and start hot gluing. And that's it. That's the whole section. That's my anchor piece. And then I'm going to move to another section. You can see that looks like it's not going to work, but watch. Again, none of this is sped up. None of this is edited out. Watch. Works perfectly. And what this is going to do, When you're working with a stretchy fabric, the way my patterns are built, the bottom will get nice and round. It's not going to be a harsh cardboard bottom or something really flat. It's going to have that nice little round cutesy shape. When you're working with a non-stretchy bottom, you have to add a little bit to this to get that round cutesy shape, because you're not going to have the ability to stretch the fabric out with weight and stuffing. All right, so here you go all the way around. And again, I just sped stuff up. I didn't stop the edit or anything. Now, watch me glue my finger to that. Yes, thank you. Okay, so watch all the way around this. I want to show y'all, making sure I don't have any holes. It is not creased. All right, so put those away, and now we're going to go. I'm going to show you again when we turn it all inside out. Speaking of turning it inside out, try and use something that isn't pokey. It is, if you're assembling with hot glue, it's pretty easy to go ahead and pop something right through this. So kind of go to the side like that instead of just working on the seam. And then I'm just going to speed this up and pull it through, and always rub the seams in between your fingers to make sure they lay flat. If you have a point or a part that is pointed, you can go ahead and do the hot glue gun, where you just glide it along the glue to sort of melt it and press it back into place. Now for the base, if you followed the pattern, you're going to be able to turn this out right sides out pretty easily, even though it is non-stretchy. I like to bang it on the table to reduce any anxiety I feel from the day. But as you can see, there's no creasing, there's no bunching. That is a non-stretchy fabric. All right, so now we're going to use about 3/4 to a cup of the weight, and I like to just drop it, make sure it's getting into all my little crevices. Now on the polyfill, because this is a thin denim, I'm just going to take little tufts and go all around the outside, kind of tucking it around those beads. I just don't want to see the beads in case, you know, they show through or something. Really, it only ever happens to me on really light colored fabrics that are really thin, but rolling it around in between my palms, just make sure it's nice and squishy. And now I'm going to stuff the hat. So I will say, if you are shipping, you want to make sure that these corners, these little hooks, are absolutely stuffed well. I don't know what it is about our postal system, but they can do a number on stuff. So I just really overstuffed this hook, and then you can see that I'll get that fluff off of it. But you really only need about 1 inch down to start. A lot of you are sending me videos of you hand sewing this and are prompting me to hand sew. Y'all, I'm trying embroidery to try and fall in love with hand sewing, but I don't think it's for me. I've made a ton of the same flowers in like 60 different colors, but I'm not the hand sewing guru by any means. All right, so here's my body. I'm just making sure I like the way it looks and the way it falls. Now I'm just going to tuck the hook through the center of the brim and pull it down, making sure I pull these little tabs on the front and on the top and the bottom away from each other. Now we are not putting this together until it's on the body. So I'm just going to tuck it onto the body, making sure to position the hook where I want it in relation to the front of the gnome. And then I'm going to glue 2 sides down. Can be the front and the back or the sides. Either way, I'm just going to glue 2 sides. Ooh, almost glued my finger. Ay. We're going to cover that up with a beard, so it doesn't matter, but let's just wipe that off. All right, so because we left the other 2 sides open, I'm just going to tuck a little bit of polyfill around the edge where our hat joined the body. And then I'm going to glue it all up. Stick it in there. I hope y'all are still making gnomes. I know that they're really popular still at Christmas, and so that's where most of my designs will come from in the future. But I was asked to create a non-stretchy fabric in this particular gnome, so I thought I'd whip this guy out and put him on my summer display. So I'm using a 2-inch pile fur, but I really want to see this like seam in the center, so I'm going to cut a very narrow, and I mean very narrow beard. So that's a 1/2 inch cut. And now I'm going to take and fold so I can find the center, and I'm just going to mark it with a pencil. If you're new to this, you can absolutely draw a V shape, a U shape, or a square right on the back of the faux fur. No one will see it. As for me, I'm going to take my extremely dull, glue-covered X-Acto knife, making sure the pile of the fur is pointing down. And I'm just going to connect a 1 inch down from the center all the way over to this 1/2 inch cut over here. And you can see I'm not pushing very hard. I'm just scoring that fabric. To me, it's so much easier and faster than scissors, especially faster if you edit it like that. Now, I like that look. So I just realized at this point, I don't even have a nose. So that is I forgot that in the supplies list. You're going to need something for a nose. So now I'm just going to glue the point where the brim meets the hook of the hat, and I'm going to be cutting off those tabs on the top and leaving them here on the bottom. So once I have that all glued down, we can actually go ahead and attach our beard. So I'm just going to tack down the very front of this one because it's a little wide. It's like a half wrap beard. So just to make sure I got it in the right place, I'm just going to pop in just the center and go grab a nose. So these are, I think, 3/4 inch, but one is a cabochon and one is a ball. You can use wood beads, you can use clay, whatever you want. But in order to get those on, after we glue down the whole beard, you're just going to separate the faux fur until you see the fabric backing. That will give us the most adhesion between our nose and our beard. And there you go. Hold that in place for about 20 seconds. Now that I have that, I'm going to go ahead to flip this over and glue down the entire back. And what this is going to do is bring the front of the brim up, but you do you. If you want a flat lid like a witch, use that. So I'm just going to cut these little tabs off. There are 4, super simple. And I'm going to be able to now tie on this Dollar Tree nautical rope. So I think it's nautical, but let me know what you think. It's shore living, so that's what made me think nautical. I don't know. I just wrapped it around. I will say I glued it in a couple of places so that it wouldn't take all of the weight on the back. So once I had that glued down, I just crossed it over in back and also glued that. Somewhere in my craft room, I have an anchor. I thought I'd find it. I didn't. I burnt the ends and then this guy was done. That is it for this quick little summer gnome. I will put the pattern link down below as well as the acrylic pattern pieces. Thanks for watching and please subscribe. Ready?